I guess this is my snarky response to there's a lot of neurodivergence these days, especially autistic. Gosh, that's so strange. I wonder why an entire group of people for whom one of the core aspects of their disability is difficulty with social interaction, like why wouldn't they want to have a voice online? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like kind of a duh to me, I guess. Hello, welcome, Trauma-Informed SLP. Hi, how's it going? This is my new series where I'm going to be talking about my maybe hot takes, or at least my 200 cents or so on some takes that they're just the things that people say sometimes as like their little overgeneralizations and just like kind of moral panickiness of discourse about neurodivergency online that I just want to like address sometimes. So welcome, pull up a chair. Hopefully are you already sitting? I don't know, maybe you're not sitting. But it's going to be a big long info dump, and I only have the tiniest bit of an outline to just remind myself of the points I want to make. But other than that, this is coming straight off the dome, baby, straight off the noggin, straight off of this thing here, this crazy, weird, like, conspiracy theory meme thought process. Anywho, if somebody wants to keep a thought tangent counter, that would be useful. I would love that because, yeah, so many tangents up in here. All right. If you're new here, welcome. If you are a returner and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing to the video. Hit a thumbs up if you feel like anything I say is of use for anyone else out there similar to you. That helps YouTube know that I produce decent enough videos that it should send it out to more people. Because if you don't interact with the video at all and you don't watch it long enough, YouTube just assumes the video maker is crap and just doesn't send it out to people like at all. So please do like and subscribe. I would love to get 1,000 subscribers. That's my current goal. I would super crazy appreciate it. I have seen my subscriber count going up and up lately, and it's just been, first off, thank you so much for everyone who's subscribed. I think this is just super exciting. Sometimes I know I'm a babby channel. As far as YouTube's concerned, I'm a babby channel, but like around 300 people, I'm kind of hovering near 300 right now, and it's like, have you seen 300 people in a room? Like, that's a pretty good turnout, you know? If I was given like a training or doing like a conference talk or something, that's 300 people is a pretty dang good turnout, actually. So like, I'm pretty happy with that. That's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? Just try to think of it as a scale thing, right? But I would love to get to 1,000 because then I could make a little bit of money just by having YouTube run some ads on my stuff. It would be a very little bit of money, but a little bit would be nice, and it wouldn't come from any of you guys. It would just be from the corporation itself. So why not? You know, why not get a little dip out of that? So anyway, that would be lovely. For those of you who have not been here before, I am a licensed speech language pathologist here in the United States. That means I have a master's degree in speech language and hearing sciences. I also have about 10 years of clinical experience across the lifespan, working in cognitive stuff, communicative stuff, and also swallow, which is kind of a weird thing. But basically, we know a lot about the anatomy from the neck up. We know a lot of that stuff. So we do that in the medical field. I've worked in the medical field. I've worked at schools. I worked at pediatric clinics. I'm also late diagnosed neurodivergent myself, kind of complex neurodivergent, and also queer as well. So welcome. I am a weirdo, basically. I'm a self-identified weirdo, and you know, I like to say I was a theater kid who was a little too weird for the theater kids. That was sort of my vibe throughout my life. And here I am on the internet now. And my main goal out here on the internet is to be an info dumper. That's what I really want to do. I don't necessarily want to influence. I just want to be like a professional info dumper. Because I do have lots of thoughts and they go very fast. Hopefully I can keep myself somewhat on task. But this is why I'm doing this with my crochet. Just to kind of sit here and chat and chill out a little bit. Keep my thoughts rolling. Got to have some sort of regular thing to do with my hands to like kind of keep my thoughts going. Whoops, that's not a big enough puff stitch. I think we got it. Okay, so today my take is going to be on the thing that you see a lot, which is like, everybody online, all these creators are all neurodivergent. Everybody's neurodivergent these days. Everybody has ADHD. Everybody has autism, particularly those two. Those tend to be the ones people talk about the most in terms of neurodivergency. They're usually talking about ADHD and autism. And look, I get it. I get it in certain ways because I'm not on TikTok or anything, but I have seen, like on YouTube and stuff, I tend to consume more long-term content or long-form content. It tends to be my vibe because I just like want the information. I feel like I hoard knowledge the way like dragons hoard gold. I think that's my vibe. It's like store it up in here and then it just becomes random little facts that I know. Anyway, so I like long-form content. And like more educational to kind of vibe things, but also sometimes people just social commentary stuff. I also like that too. It's kind of like my trash TV basically, is watching people comment on trash TV. Anyway, let's go back to this. But you know, even on the commentators, like maybe their whole platform isn't about their neurodivergency, but they'll still drop things about like their ADHD or their autistic brain, or oh, that's the autism coming out there. Like they'll say things that sound sort of flippant, I guess. And I can see why it might start to seem that way. Like when you know creators who like maybe they just do funny sketches or something, but then they also sometimes drop that they have ADHD or something, right? And like I can see why it can seem like everybody's neurodivergent these days. Everybody's ADHD or autistic or what have you. And regardless of whatever the algorithm is, you know, whatever their platform is, right? Maybe they're not really a full-on advocate. Oh, caveat though, I am talking about adult creators who are putting out content of their own volition and their own free will. I am not talking about like family vloggers who maybe post if they have an autistic kid or an ADHD kid. I'm not talking about that. This is purely about adults who put out their content of their own free will and volition. Okay, so like young adults up through the older ages. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. But like, here's the thing. People get a bug up their butt about the word neurodivergent, which is like 9 times out of 10 people don't really know what that word means. Neurodivergent is an umbrella term that includes a lot of different things. It's literally just a term that was coined, I forget by who, but it's on Wikipedia. If you look up neurodivergent on Wikipedia, you'll see who coined it. And the term literally was developed to basically say like some people's brains don't work in a way that we kind of expect the average adult brain to work. Okay, like that's kind of where it is, right? And neurodivergency is the word used to just describe the fact that everybody's individual brain is different. That's why we're different people. We have different wiring in our brain just in general. But neurodivergent, essentially, think of it more like if you gathered up a bunch of people and you kind of took the average of like cognitive skills from different people, the neurodivergence are the people who are the outliers. We're the ones who are falling away from the middle. We're not in the average of kind of what our brains do and how they function, okay? So neurodivergent includes a lot of things. It includes, you can have an acquired one if you've had a brain injury. I've had a few brain injuries. I've had 3 mild and I've had a post-concussive disorder one as well in my mid-20s. Yeah, I think we're heading toward a yarn conundrum here. I think I'm about to get a little bit of a catch on pulling this yarn out. Anyway, my fiber artists out there know what I'm talking about when the yarn just kind of goes bleh. I call it yarn barf. Is that what you call yarn barf? When it just kind of like comes out the middle? It's like, I think that's what it's called. For any other fiber artists out there. Anywho's, so yeah, you could have brain injuries. You can have trauma can cause a neurodivergency because it changes your physiology. Like it changes the wiring a little bit, you know, that's the whole point of a trauma. That's literally what PTSD is basically. It's like the brain is getting rewired, at least when it comes to your alert system for if you are safe or not in a certain situation, if you're under threat or not. Essentially, that whole threat detection system in your brain gets kind of funked up after trauma. That's the whole point with that. You know, you also have the neurodivergencies from birth, right? You have the neurodevelopmental differences like ADHD, autism, also includes syndromes, things like that, right? And, you know, so yeah, you've got a lot of that. There are a lot of neurodivergence in that sense. Mental illnesses can be considered neurodivergent as well, right? People who are struggling with personality disorders, people who have a lot of chronic anxiety, chronic depression, like this stuff is all neurodivergent, okay? This is all different than what kind of the average adult brain would do if you were out there testing brains, okay? If you were out there being a psychologist. Granted, a lot of that research is still done on like usually college students, actually 9 times out of 10, because that's like where we do our research and that's where you can get participants. But, you know, yeah, it's definitely a very certain specific subset of people. So it's not like those measures are particularly good at identifying everybody's abilities, because they didn't really take intersectionality into consideration when they were looking into stuff like that, when they were trying to figure out how does the human brain work, you know? Yeah, go figure. The old white male professors were thinking about trying to figure out how white men's brains work. Who would have thunk that they were a little bit, you know, a little narrow in their scope sometimes. Being a little facetious there. All right. Get myself back on here. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I think we have to consider if you're trying to think about this, like everybody's neurodivergent these days, whether that's their platform or not. They all talk about it. They all talk about their ADHD. They all talk about this. All right. There's a few things going on here, I think, personally. Now, one of the things going on is, you guys remember the theater kids? Do you remember that weird group? Remember? And like they got around each other, they got even weirder and louder and weirder and louder. Yeah. You know, the theater kids, like, they still retain some of that as they age. You know what I mean? And like actually making it in performance is rather difficult. I don't know if you've noticed. And content creation isn't exactly not competitive either. It can be rather difficult as well. But the thing about it that makes it a little different is it's free. You just need a camera. And look at this. We all have cameras in our pockets, on our phones. And you just have to like create an account and upload videos, like boom. So you can take these kind of weird theater kids, many of whom likely were neurodivergent, whether diagnosed or not at that age, likely were a little on the neurodivergent side of things, because there are a lot of neurodivergence in performing arts, like a lot. In theater, in dance, and there's just a lot, okay? Personalities are very different in fields. In acting for sure, like in Hollywood, like there's a lot of neurodivergency happening in the performing, in the artistic side of the performing arts. And yeah, so it's not too surprising that people who have that inclination, who enjoy creating things as a performing artist, it's not too crazy to think. Sorry, I'm just trying to determine what I'm doing here with my stitches. It's not too crazy. It's not too off the wall. I think I need to back up actually a little bit. Hold on. Not too crazy to think that some of those performers, they just might find it kind of easy to pull out a camera, perform to the camera, do their thing, and then like, you know, post it online for everyone to see. Ta-da-da-da. You know? That's not too out there in my mind to think of it that way. So I do think that's an aspect. I think, yeah, there probably are a lot of neurodivergence online with a lot of this stuff, because there's a lot of former theater kids out there who would like to do some stuff, you know, who like to they like to do sketches, they like to perform, right? I think that's a thing. The other thing I think is, that also brings me to this other thought I had, which is, you know, I guess this is my snarky response to, there's a lot of neurodivergence these days, especially autistic, particularly for autistic, I guess I would say. Oh, there's so many autistics these days online. Like, even if that's not their platform, they all say they're autistic or whatever. And it's like, yeah, gosh, that's so strange. I wonder why an entire group of people for whom one of the core aspects of their disability is difficulty with social interaction, but also another aspect of it tends to be hyper-focusing, special interest, deep dives into things. how strange that they would want to come online and like maybe, I don't know, info dump to the ether of the internet for free once again and see if anybody's interested in hearing about their info dumps. How strange, right? Like, it's like, come on, of course. Like, why wouldn't people who don't normally have a voice in real life why wouldn't they want to have a voice online? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like kind of a duh to me, I guess. A little bit of a duh as far as I'm concerned with that. So I think you got to remember that a little bit, right? You got a mix of theater kids. You also got people who are socially isolated, who have all this knowledge in their head that nobody wants to listen to probably in real life. And like also editing, you can edit a lot, which makes it a lot easier to just info dump. It makes it a lot easier to just talk to people and find an audience who have similar interests to you. Like, that also is a no-brainer there. Editing is really nice. You don't have to worry as much about masking in front of the camera if you can just cut out the parts that are a little weird and tangential, right? That makes it easier. Bada bing, bada boom. You know what I'm saying? Like, hello. So I think that's a lot of it. Now, I do also think there are algorithmic incentives as well. We can't forget the algorithms. Like the fact, like, listen, if you engage with ADHD or autistic content, you're going to start being fed a lot of ADHD and autistic content. Like, that's just how that goes. That's how all the algorithms go now, right? So that's a lot of it too, is people get fed that stuff because they interact with that stuff. And then you're going to see it a lot. And then we got to remember that like our algorithms, all of our individual algorithms on any of the social media platforms, those are all little bubbles that were created for us. That's what the FYP stands for. It's the For You page. It's crafted, it's stuff sent to you. The algorithm's like, hey man, you might like this. Here, interact with it. Right? Now, I don't know, TikTok seems to work kind of weird, but they seem to enjoy rage bait perhaps more than some others, perhaps. But like, that's how that works. So if you're engaging with that content, you're going to see that content more often, right? If you're engaging with creators who have that kind of personality or that type of wiring or that particular interest or special interest, maybe you'll see more neurodivergence feeding that to you. So it's like, yeah, but this doesn't mean that the majority of people in the world are neurodivergent, because the majority of people in the world are not actually public content creators online, right? Not everybody wants to do that. Plenty of people, they might have a profile, but it's private. They just send stuff out there to friends and family, right? Like, not everybody wants the fame of being a content creator, you know? Oh yeah, that also brings me to the other thought. Sorry, and this is a little bit out of order, but let me swing right back to that maybe there are a lot of neurodivergents who are content creators. Here's the other thing about it. Like, one thing about content creation is if you get a big enough audience, you can monetize. That's beneficial to an entire population of people who struggle with consistent employment. So a lot of adult ADHDers and autistic struggle with consistent employment, struggle with being burnt out by the workplace and all of that. So like appealing, you could work from home, you can work on your own schedule. So if you're a night owl, you could record at night, you could edit until like 4 a.m. and then sleep until noon. And like, oh well, not a big deal, right? Try to do that with an office job, you're gonna be a zombie the next day probably, because you won't be able to sleep. Like, it'll be really, really hard, nigh on impossible. So it also makes sense in that sense. There's a lot of people in, like, a lot of autistics and ADHD struggle with circadian rhythm. They struggle with, our sleep patterns are very different. I, for one, have a delayed sleep phase. So it always has been that way. It doesn't matter how early I go to bed. My best quality sleep is late enough that I'm just chronically tired if I'm trying to get up crazy early for a job. So these are just the facts of life. And so it's appealing to have your own schedule, to be your own boss, potentially make money at it. Like, yo, you know? I had a friend, one of my friends who still works at the high school where I used to work. She's a special ed teacher there. She talks about how like all the teenagers now want to be content creators. That's like their dream. And she's like, it's kind of scary and awful. And I'm like, honestly, it's probably about the same as when teenagers say they want to be in the NBA or the NFL, or they want to be a famous actor or actress or a model or something, or a rock star. It's just them seeing successful people making a lot of money. They're seeing the content creators who just make money talking to a camera. And they think, wow, that would be awesome if I could just have that job, make money just sitting here talking to people on the internet. Like, that would be amazing, you know, or making sketches or whatever. And like actually becoming a content creator that makes that kind of money, though, it takes work and it takes a certain finesse, just like all those other careers, just like the NBA, the NFL, like it's competitive, you know what I mean? Like, so I told her that I was like, I would just see it as like, oh, that's like a teenager being like, this looks like a way to have a financially secure future, is pretty much what I think they're trying to say, which honestly, given the economy and the way things are going, fair to have that dream, you know? But maybe let's be real about it, and the fact that like it is unlikely that you become super famous enough to actually make a living off of it. And even then, the living might be short, right? It might not be a long-term thing. It might be very short-lived, right? So I don't know. I just think that it makes a lot of sense to me that creative personalities that are super interested in certain topics, it makes sense that these particular aspects of especially ADHD and autistic brains would lead them to want to create things for the public online. You know what I mean? I mean, I just want to be an info dumper. Like I said, that's all I want. That's my whole goal here. And I know I'm just yet another neurodivergent out here, but I feel like maybe I have some slightly unique takes on things. Maybe I have some slightly unique perspective, just given training and all of that stuff, maybe, you know, and knowing a little more of the research and stuff out there. And also having experience with a very wide variety of neurodivergents out there as patients, students, and clients, you know? So maybe that also helps a little bit with that perspective. I don't know. And maybe I'm just crazy.
Are you crazy?
Maybe I'm just too weird for my own sake. But anyway, I think I'm just going to leave that here for today. I think I hit most of my points there at that point, but yeah, anyway, let me know what you think. Write a whole paragraph. I don't mind. If you just want to leave me like your 200 cents and write a paragraph, that's fine. Otherwise, you know, also let me know if there's other like little topics and stuff that come up a lot in discussion that you want to just hear me talk off my noggin about. I will be adding more to my Welcome to the Late Diagnosis playlist I have. If you are new here and you are neurodivergent or suspecting that you're neurodivergent and you're not sure, head on over there. Or maybe you're a parent of a kid who's been diagnosed with ADHD and or autism or some other adjacent neurodivergency, can head over there too, because I'm basing a lot of that knowledge on like my own personal clinical model of neurodivergent affirming care, at least from the communications perspective. And I'm starting on the systemic stuff. So I've done a systemic oppression video. Up next will be a little bit more deep dive into internalized depression and how that impacts our mental health as individuals, but also how it impacts like how safe the community might feel for people, how there can be kind of infighting within certain marginalized groups, and how like intersectionality and stuff can really, or at least lack of knowledge around intersectionality can really create some adverse experiences for people, even amongst other fellow neurodivergents and such. And I'll be going into, and I did double empathy as well. So I did something on the double empathy problem. I'll probably be going deeper into that in future videos as well. And yeah, so I have like a list of things there. I have a list of these sort of like off the top of my head kind of info dump things. Yeah, but I would love a longer list. So let me know, stick it in a comment below what you want to hear my viewpoints on. That would be dope. A little Q&A action over here. Hey. But with all that said, in the interest of us all using our little neurodivergent weirdness for good, you know, in order to form a safer community for all of us, I wish for you all to just keep it weird. And until next time, but also for anyone for whom this time of year is tough, do something really nice for yourself, okay? The time is tough, but it too shall pass, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing to say. Why did I say that? That's just sort of dumb. Anyway, just, I don't know. Be nice to yourself. And you're definitely not alone. There's a lot of people who really struggle with this time of year. And so try to be as kind to yourself as you possibly can be, and try not to put too much on your shoulders when you're going through a hard time, because just getting through it takes an awful lot of energy and courage and strength to do. So, you know, it's kind of the you're doing amazing, sweetie. Even if you're not, even if you don't think you are, you probably are. You know what I'm saying? I'm too weird for algorithms, guys. So comment, like, subscribe, do all those things to help these videos to get out to more people. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.